Don't wanna break the rule. Okay, what we got? What we got? That's what we want. Want that. We want that. Beautiful. Okie dokie. So, channel's hit 100,000 views overnight. Kind of cool. Obviously, we've had two big games in the Six Nations yesterday. We've got one big game today, which has obviously helped tip the channel over the 100,000 view moniker, which I think is a small achievement for a channel this size. I'm quite happy with that. Obviously, Ireland play Italy at 3 o'clock our time, 4 o'clock European time zone. And that's going to be a good game because key players are missing for both sides. And I do apologise about my voice. I have got plague, probably hay fever or flu or something. Standard operating fare, really. Watch that. Let's put that there. So, yeah. A lot's happened, obviously, since the last live stream. A lot of things have happened. We've had Widnes Vikings, obviously, entering administration, and their game today is cancelled against the Sheffield Eagles. So it's open to debate what's going to happen with Widnes going forward. I think it's a very unfortunate state of affairs up at the Vikings and Widnes there. That 12-point deduction could mean relegation to League One at the end of the season if they can't even complete the season. We know that there are administrators involved in the running day-to-day of the club, and that going forward, a solution needs to be found. I think the RFL needs to get on board quicker rather than just releasing the centralised funds early. They need to possibly take over the day-to-day running of the club and help by taking over some of the ownership until appropriate owners can be found. But it raises questions over the finances of rugby league as a whole, the finances at the lower level, the TV deal that's currently in place with rugby league, with Sky for the regular season games, and of course the Challenge Cup getting limited coverage on the BBC because not every game is live or not every round is live until the quarterfinals, which I think is a bit stupid considering that some of the Super League sides come in much earlier. And there are some great sides in the Championship that either A, have been in Super League, or B, have won the Challenge Cup before, the Sheffield Eagles, for example. So there are issues pertaining to the finances of rugby league in this country. I know the NRL got involved with the Gold Coast Titans when they were having their financial struggles a couple of years back, until a suitable buyer and finance could be found. I'm hoping the RFL here does exactly the same and tries to keep the club going. I think it's in the RFL's interests for this season at least, if not short to medium term, to keep Widnes afloat and avoid them crashing out of existence, because that could prove catastrophic, not just obviously for Widnes, but the wider rugby league structure as a whole. It's an interesting one. We've also seen Blackpool Football Club go into receivership, so the Oyston family have basically lost control of Blackpool in the Football League. That's been a 5-year protest movement by the fan base. There's been a lot of issues with Blackpool off the field with the Oyston family. They're long, they're complex. What league will Blackpool be playing in next year? Will they still be in the Football League? Same with Coventry City. They're having stadium issues because they don't own the Ricoh, and the Ricoh is now owned by Wasps. There's a lease issue. There's ongoing legal issues between Coventry City's owners and Wasps and their ownership group. So Coventry City have until I think Coventry City have got another 2 weeks to go before the EFL with a proposal of where they're playing their home games next season. And then you have a possibility at the end of April of an extraordinary general meeting of all Football League clubs, all 72 of them below the Premier League, to vote on whether Coventry stay in the Football League or not, or get thrown out. And if they get thrown out, again, that's going to have a devastating impact long term, not just for Coventry City, but for several clubs with all the local rivalries that there will be. There's ongoing issues there as well. Obviously, as I was saying, the channel clicked over to 100,000 views early hours this morning, late last night. I believe my rugby league and rugby union videos have something to do with that. There's it's interesting because some of the subscribers who have recently found the channel, a lot of them are from all over the world. It's not as if like, oh yeah, I'm an Englishman or I'm a Welshman or an Irishman or a Scotsman and I follow the Six Nations. It's like I'm a New Zealander, I'm a Kiwi living in Melbourne, and I was looking for Mako Vunipola videos because I'm a South Sea Islander. That's how some people are discovering this channel. People will also notice I haven't done many NHL videos yet. The trade deadline hasn't come yet, and in all honesty, um, I've been meaning to do an NHL video for a few weeks, but it's getting the rugby union bids out the way. I think the Six Nations has been enthralling. I mean, they played this third round and there's a week off the last 2 rounds, so there's another bye week coming up. I think for me that ruins the intensity of the tournament a little bit. I think Scotland have had that week off hangover yesterday. I think they went in with a game plan and they didn't execute. So if you want to talk about what happened with Scotland yesterday against France, this French team are in disarray, absolute disarray. You've got problems when you put Ntamack at fly half. He's only played there 8 times or in 8 games in his professional career, and this is his 3rd cap. There's issues with the French when they're putting in a young, inexperienced player who doesn't regularly play fly half in at fly half, who's more of what is a utility back, hasn't really nailed down a position yet with his club, and allow a young player like that to play with freedom and expression. I didn't understand Scotland's tactics yesterday, and the French have obviously used that week off and the press attacks on them. Oh God, the French press have really gone after the French national side when it comes to rugby union. They've really gone after them. They've obviously responded to that criticism, at least for this week. But it's going to be interesting to see what French team turns up in round 4 and round 5. This French team in the first 2 rounds was absolutely hopeless. But there were signs against Wales that they can play a bit. It's what happened in the second half against Wales and throughout the entire game against England. They allowed themselves just to be disorganised, pulled apart. There was a lack of confidence. So I'm really amazed what the French did in their week off. They've done something. I think England would have rather not had a week off. I think these 2 bye weeks around round 3 are a bit head scratchy for me in how the Six Nations is organised. But I think that's a club country debate between World Rugby, the Six Nations organisers, and the various clubs that the players play for. I have no doubt that the tournament would flow better if it was just over a solid 5-week period. I have no issue. I mean, I have no doubt it would flow better. I think teams would play better. I think the games would be more intense throughout. I think because in the World Cup at the end of the summer, you're not going to have bye weeks. You're going to be playing a game every 6 days. You're going to be playing a game every 6 to 7 days. You're not going to have a turnaround where you get a week off. It's plain and simple. And if it's just weird. I just find it weird that an international competition is designed with 2 bye weeks in it, when the World Cup, the main competition, doesn't have bye rounds or bye weeks. You have to play on a. I think the shortest turnaround. I think it's 4 days between tests for some nations at the World Cup. So I don't get the bye week thing, but I understand why they do it. It's the club country debate, and that's been raging on for about 20 years when it comes to test level rugby. The issues we found with test level rugby are very, very interesting. Some of the comments saying that it's becoming very predictable, in attack and defence. And I would say the Welsh attack in the first half against England was just, I was scratching my head at why single one-up runners were going into 2, 3, 4 men tackles. I really didn't understand that as a viewer of the sport. I thought rugby league does that. That's a rugby league move. So that's Sean Edwards' imprint on the Welsh coaching setup, I believe, because they were getting driven back. They were getting no change out of that. It was only when Dan Biggar came on that the Welsh changed their game plan, and it took 60 minutes for the Welsh to realise this one-up running isn't working. We're getting knocked about a bit. I was really surprised with England not targeting Anscombe in defence. I think he's the less experienced fly half. He's smaller than Dan Biggar. He's less physical. I was really surprised that England didn't put Tuilagi down his channel. Didn't put some of the other big ball carriers down his channel. I think he got involved in 2 tackles. Did Anscombe in defence. That's not how you're going to unlock that Welsh defence. The reason why the Welsh defence was unlocked was they lost their own ball. They turned over the ball at a maul. England was very quick on the counter attack, and then Tom Curry. I don't know what Tipuric is doing. He's wrestling on the floor with Ben Youngs, and he leaves a massive gaping hole in the defence line. And I didn't understand that either. And the game itself, yeah, great for intensity, but for quality was I've seen better at school age. I've played him better. There was drop ball all over the place. There was misplaced lineouts. There was constant reset scrums. And I just didn't understand the tactics from either side for 60 minutes. And then England, I didn't understand the tactics for 80 minutes, really, because they only crossed the try line once. The kicking game from Farrell and others was really shit. I'm not going to lie. And the Welsh kicking game wasn't great until Dan Biggar came on either. The kick tactically was oh, God, that is bright without my glasses on. I think I'm going to keep my sunglasses on with the sun as it is. But no, the kicking game on both sides was poor. The quality of kicking. It wasn't just like the area where you're kicking to was poor. It was the kicking was poor. I didn't get some of the tactics. I think the team that came out best out of this weekend tactically was the French. A team that I predicted to lose by 30 points wins by nearly 20. I got every pissing prediction wrong so far. But let's get off Rugby Union for a minute. Okay, so we've hit 100,000 views. I can get that title off now, but you can knock that off. Right, and now I can start putting notes up on the board and answering your questions because there are a lot of things to talk about. I mean, the NRL pre-season trials have started down under, and that gives an idea of some of the fringe players who might get a chance to play this season in the NRL. That's going to be fun. Really looking forward to, if I can catch any games, to watch some of the quality that's going to be on display. We're going to need them. Oh, shit. We're going to need... Right, where are we? No, I was really. I mean, the NRL was obviously coming up. The NRL's obviously had a lot of negative press this winter for us up here in the Northern Hemisphere, and if you live down under this summer, so over the Christmas period, the NRL has had a lot of issues. It's interesting that the amount of issues that the NRL has had, and I don't know how you combat now. The NRL has a structure much like any other league. You'll have, you'll have the NRL CEO, and we know who that is, and that is Mr. Todd Green Turd. I call him Green Turd. Most people do. And this guy. So Todd Greenberg is the CEO, and he's the guy who's the public face. He's the guy who does all these press conferences. He's the guy who comes up with the policy direction and things like that. Below him, there are a variety. There's the footballing unit, but the one that keeps coming up in odds with Mr. Green Turd is these guys. Now, what is interesting, and I'm going to discuss this, and I discussed this in previous videos about the NRL, and I'm free to take questions on this, but there are 3 incidents in particular that I'm looking at. There's a multitude of players who've screwed up. So we have Ben Barber, who rightly, I feel, has had his contract at North Queensland terminated. I have no issue with Ben Barber having his contract terminated or being suspended. However, when you deregister a player for life without criminal charges being brought, when you have this guy who is facing, well, he's facing 15 years in prison, and he's allowed to play. It raises questions about Todd Greenberg's leadership because he's come out with this how do I put it, this hard line on discipline, and in the middle you have a muppet, and I do call him a muppet because he was the Dylan Napa tapes, and he's threatened with suspension. The three ways that the integrity unit has dealt with this is his club will appeal, and they are appealing any suspension Dylan Napa will receive. Jack Nabelin, he's been cleared till his trial date, and I think that is absolutely shocking. And I do feel a little bit of sympathy for Ben Barber because at the end of the day, he hasn't actually got to the court stage like Jack Nabelin, but Jack Nabelin is still allowed to play. I find the way that Todd Greenberg comes out with a very strict, very strict, how do I put it, statement saying we will not tolerate misbehaviour, we won't tolerate violence against women. This guy, it starts now. It should have started 30 years ago. So the NRL are really slow on the upkeep of domestic violence. Is actually quite bad and has been bad for forever. Ben Barber getting banned for life without charges, I don't understand that. The club took the decision to fire him. His club are taking the decision to go, hang on a sec, these videotapes were filmed 5 years ago. We're going to appeal any suspension you give him, and we're going to kick up a fuss. And Jack Nabelin, oh yeah, you can be accused of some horrific crimes, but you're still allowed to play because we're going to put pressure on the local magistrates to allow you to play. I find the Jack Nabelin situation disgusting. I find the Ben Barber one puzzling, and I find the Dylan Napa one unfortunate. I think Dylan Napa has been made an example of. Ben Barber was made an example of. Jack Nabelin is not being made an example of because I don't know. So it really undermines what Todd Greenberg is coming out and saying. Excuse me. With this hardline zero tolerance approach. Now, Dylan Napa's offence dates back to 2013. That's what his new club is saying. It highlights an issue of culture at the Roosters, not at Canterbury. Jack Nabelin, vile human being. I'm sorry, I've already made my mind about Jack Nabelin. I've read the press releases and I've read the articles on the internet. He's a vile human being. Ben Barber, he's an absolute tool as well, but does he deserve to be banned for life considering he hasn't been charged with any offences yet, considering the amount of players in the NRL's history who've had off-field indiscretions of violence against women, domestic violence allegations, alcohol-related assaults, drugs issues? Does he deserve to be thrown under the bus for 20 years of misbehaviour? I don't know. But it's raising questions about that guy's integrity himself because he's come out with all these strongly worded statements saying, we will not tolerate this, it's naughty. But then you have a complete mess when it comes to discipline. Then if you have this zero tolerance approach, why do you have three different outcomes? It makes no sense. Now, there are complexes with the Jack Nabelin one because it is an ongoing legal thing. Dylan Napa, God, it just highlights an issue of culture at the Roosters. Then, possibly now, the coach hasn't really changed. That just highlights a culture issue. And that actually highlights the culture issue within the NRL as a whole. And Ben Barber is a player with issues anyway because this is not the first allegation of domestic violence, and he's had 2 cocaine strikes. So it raises questions about the NRL and the battle between the integrity unit and Todd Greenberg, because Todd Greenberg comes out and says very strongly worded things, and then as time goes on, the punishments for players get less. I don't get that. The NRL put pressure on the local courts and magistrates to get Jack Nabelin to play. I do not understand that. Jack Nabelin broke the law, got charged with a series of serious offences, and the NRL puts pressure on the Wollongong court to change his bail conditions and allow him to play. I'm sorry, that is wrong. He should be under the same bail conditions that you or I will be under. So that's my view on it. I don't quite understand because the NRL integrity unit clearly have followed Todd Greenberg for like a week and then gone, no, we're going to do our own thing. So there's a difference between the opinion of Todd Greenberg. He's clearly a reactionary. He's panicking about the press and their interpretation of what all these scandals mean for the NRL. And then you've got the NRL Integrity Unit, who are actually following the NRL's code of conduct that's already written down in the rule book and applying it case by case. So that's that one. Okay, now I've got the first question come up. That was well, surprised it's taken 20 minutes for a question to come up. United Liverpool. Solskjaer has done some really good things since taking over, but the tactics of United are still the same. He's just getting more out of the players than Mourinho was, because it's a happy environment to play in now, whereas before it was a negative, toxic environment of distrust and confusion and a manager who was at war with his players, the media, the transfer policy, himself. Liverpool, obviously, Klopp has come out and says he wants them to win the league this year over Champions League. I would say Liverpool are favourites because obviously they performed better in the league as a whole this season. But at the end of the day, it's a close one. It could be a draw. It's always a heated rivalry. It has been forever. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a player sent off in here somewhere. It's got a high red and yellow card count compared to other derby matches. I think the only one that tops it for red cards in the Premier League is Liverpool Everton for player ill discipline. So it's going to be interesting to see how Solskjaer approaches the game, how Klopp approaches the game. Obviously, Man City are playing a cup final today, so it's a chance for Liverpool to get back in charge of the title race, I suppose. But Guardiola go, we want Man United to do us a favour. No, focus on your own game. I hate when players say that. Oh, we're hoping for other clubs to do us a favour. I really hate that with managers. But I think what's going to be really interesting is a couple of these guys. I mean, you've got what Pogba, and this is serious. Like, what Pogba? Who's going to turn up? Are we going to have the Pogba that scored a brilliant goal against Chelsea in the FA Cup at the beginning of the week, or are we going to have the Pogba of last season who was all over the place? It's getting the best out of him. On the Liverpool side, which one of these is going to decide to put a hat trick past De Gea, if it is De Gea starting? Because Sergio Romero, I think for me, isn't equal to David De Gea. I think that's the issue when you have two quality goalkeepers. That's another problem that Man United have got, is they've got two international level goalkeepers. Is Salah going to turn up and put a couple goals in? Is Mane going to run ragged United's defence? Is Firmino going to control and drop deep and give these guys a bit more space? It'll be interesting to see how Klopp goes with those three. But for United, it's on Pogba, and I suppose to a certain extent, the most overpaid guy I think you can find. This guy is a hot potato because he is so well paid. He's paid like 30 odd million a year in salary, and he scored five goals now for United since he moved last January. Is it 5 goals? Something like that. Well, Sanchez is going to turn up because these two players especially were singled out for having made many problems under Mourinho. And what Pogba's going to turn up? Can Pogba do it week in, week out? He's starting to do it more for Solskjaer, but he's a hot and cold player. Sanchez has not performed to the level that is expected. But there's a reason why Barcelona let him go so cheap to Arsenal. He's not as good as he thinks he is. Salah, Mane and Firmino. I think all three of them singularly are better than Sanchez. And as a unit, they are lethal, but it's getting them enough ball from midfield, and that's another area of Liverpool's that possibly could use a look at. But it's going to be interesting. That it's the most hated rivalry, and I think it's now got more meaning than it did 5 years ago. I think it's got more meaning than it did 10 years ago. I think United have declined as a side and Liverpool have improved as a side, but Liverpool aren't as consistent enough in the league. There's a reason why Liverpool haven't won the Premier League um, since its inception. There's a reason why they are seen as a cup team. It's consistency in these big crunch matches where you could go 3 points clear, you could go 4 points clear. A United Liverpool combined 11. Are we talking about all time, or are we talking about right now? Because right now, I think the quality level of the Premier League is less than what it was in the mid 90s when I started watching religiously. I think the quality level in the last 20 years has dropped. I actually mean that. I actually think um, the quality level of players, I think worldwide, is actually less now than what it was 20 years ago. So combined 11, I don't think you get those. You could get those players to actually play together. That's another thing. I'm going to go for a. It's a difficult one. I think if you was to do a combined 11 in my lifetime, there'd be more United players than Liverpool players in it. I think that's another. I think that's another one. Um, that. Oh dear. Oh, as you can see, it is actually quite bright. We've just got a lovely sunny day, so they've got good conditions, I think, for the match. I'm going to take those off for a bit. Oh, weird having my sunglasses off. I have a hangover, so I'm trying to hide my eyes because my head hurts. A combined 11, I would say it's difficult because the dominance of Man United between 1992 and 2007, 2008. When you look at the amount of Premier Leagues won, Man United have won half of them. And to combine an 11, I mean, what players of Liverpool's in the last. Yes, garlic. Yeah, garlic does kill. There's a type of bacteria called a nematode, and if you spray garlic on it, it kills it off. It stops the pitch cutting up. It is actually a known fact. The Scottish Rugby Union did that at Murrayfield for about 5 years to try and keep the pitch going. Um, but to do a combined 11, it's a difficult one. Let's have a think. Well, this is going to be hard. It's actually going to be very, very hard because I've been watching football since '92, so I don't know how old you guys are, but there'll be some players I'll be mentioning that you guys may not have heard of. Um, it's a difficult one since I've been watching football. Who would I have in goal? I'm going to have to go with Van der Sar in goal. Fuck. This is hard. This is very, very hard. So let's have a look. I'm going to go for a 4-4-2 because that's far, far simpler than trying to go a 4-3-3 or a 4-5-1. You've got Van der Sar in goal. That's goalkeeper. Let's have a look. So that's our number one. Oh, shit, this is going to be difficult. You've got to put Vidic in as one of the centre backs, so I'm not going to lie there. I don't think anyone could lie about Vidic being a centre back. Absolute animal. And then it gets a bit harder. I'm going to have to. Oh, dear, no. Oh, how do I spell Hyypiä? That's going to be. Oh, this is going to be interesting. Sami Hyypiä. I'm going to put. Like, I hope I spell his name. Is it Hyypiä? Sami Hyypiä. How do I spell his name? He was right. I'm going to try and spell this guy's name right. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of spell check. Let's have a look. Let me just go for. So we're doing a combined 11. Let's have a look. Oh God. Oh, it was double P. Probably not the fastest. Sami Hyypiä. Finland. Flying Finn. I had to put him in. God. Forgot he played centre back. So as you can see, I'm going to put. Oh, this is going back to the 90s now, and you guys are probably going to go, who's that? And it's Dennis Irwin, Republic of Ireland international. Is that right, man? But bear in mind, there's two Nevilles. So what's interesting is so far there's only one Liverpool player to make the team. So so yeah, we've got 4 out of 5 players on the team sheet already are United players, and a lot of these. Neville was playing in the 90s towards the end. He got into the side. Dennis Irwin was basically replaced by Gary Neville and Phil Neville, but Irwin's in there from the early days. Now we get to the midfield. Oh shit, this is gonna be hard. And for those who say you can't, oh god, oh, you have him on the right. You know, I'm doing a 4-4-2. You could make these wingers and those two holding midfielders. It doesn't really matter. But Beckham and Giggs. So again, Liverpool are not really getting in here. Mark McManaman, curly hair twat as I call him. He would get in there for some of his technical ability. I'm not gonna lie. And I think Keane or Gerrard. I'm going to have to go for Keane over Gerrard. I really am. Gerrard, for me, hasn't done it in the Premier League week in. I would have McManaman over Scholes because McManaman could tackle, Scholes couldn't. I'm not going to lie, Paul Scholes couldn't tackle to save his life and would probably give you. So far, I have 2 Liverpool players. 2. This is my combined 11. Everyone's combined 11 is completely different, but I've been watching these guys play since 92, so I've seen the class of 92 in Neville and Giggs and Beckham come into the side. I saw McManaman at his prime, and he didn't have, I think, as good a English league career as he could have. I think he went to Real Madrid too soon, retired too soon. But that's something that we can discuss about McManaman if you remember him play, because I do. Oh, it's going to be fun who to put up front. I could put Sheringham, Andy Cole, Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler. I'm going to go. I'm going to go. There's my combined 11. We have Van der Sar in goal. We have Irwin, Hippier, Vidic, Neville, Beckham, McManaman, King, Giggs, Fowler, and Cantona. So I have 3 Liverpool players in there. 3. That for me would be my combined 11. But this is bearing in mind this is from 92 till now. I don't think there's enough of the players playing now to what who are at a good enough level to get in to the side. Who's my captain? Captain. Oh, that's a difficult one. Do I go? Oh, shit. Well, here's the problem. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You've got at least you've got 3 out of the back 4 have been captain for their club. Van der Sar's been captain for club and country. Roy Keane's been captain for club and country. Giggs has been captain for club and country. Beckham's been captain for club and country. Robbie Fowler's captain a few games. Cantona was captain for a couple of years. The only one who hasn't actually been captain is Dennis Irwin. So I have 10 out of 11 captains on the field. So that makes it interesting when 10 of your players have been captain for club or country at some point. And it's a difficult one. But Phew. I'm going to have to go for Mr. Eric Cantona. I would have to go for a certain Eric Cantona. But if you want me to put in an all-time Premier League 11, some of these players don't make it. I've done that before. Some of these players don't make it into the all-time Premier League 11. And that's an interesting thing, is the fact that some of these players don't make it into the Premier League 11 that I did. But I've been watching the Premier League since inception, and I've actually noticed that, look at all these players. The one to retire latest, I think Vidic is actually still going. Vidic is still playing. Neville is the most annoying pundit I've ever met, I've ever seen. He's an annoying little twerp. Yeah, Vidic is the only one still playing. Van der Sar's recently retired. Neville's recently retired. Sami Hyypiä is now in management. Beckham's got his MLS franchise and owns Salford City. McManaman is a pundit and a racehorse owner. Roy Keane's in management. Giggs in management. Cantona's gone into acting. Robbie Fowler, I don't know what Robbie Fowler's doing. But Vidic is the only one still playing that I'm aware of. So, for me, that would be my combined 11. But you got to look at the trophies that these players have won, and it gives you an idea of why I've selected them. But that's my combined 11. I would go with Cantona as captain, because when he was captain of Man United, that was the best Man United team by a country mile. Vidic is the only one still playing, and even now Vidic has got the turning circle of a barge. Robbie Fowler is being Robbie Fowler. Yes, he is. Robbie Fowler is being Robbie Fowler, the homophobic cokehead cunt that he is. Yes, I said those words. I've met Robbie Fowler. He's a quality, underrated striker. He could get you goals in big situations. He was a good poacher in the box. He's got a good scoring record, but as a human being, he is he's not a pleasant human being. Much. But that would be my combined. Only 3 Liverpool players get in there. No, it's no Gerrard. There's none of the current Man United or Liverpool sides get in there. I think they haven't fully achieved their full career potential yet. When I asked about a starting lineup or who if my ultimate fantasy team, I always go with ex players, because I know what they've proven in their career, and I know what they've won or not won, or how underrated they were, or if they were overrated. Players now, they haven't achieved all they can achieve in the game. It doesn't matter. I mean, I did it for my cricket starting 11. I could do my ultimate NHL team, and you'd be like, who the hell are all these people? Because they've played. It's a difficult one. How long am I live for? I don't know. There's rugby on at 3. I'm not feeling great, so I thought I'll do a little special for an hour or so, but I can go as long as my voice will hold out for. I've not been well for a couple of days, and it's a bit ugh. So I'll be as long as I feel able to, I guess. But you have to look at the players that didn't get into that lineup. So if you've missed that, done a great rugby team. That's difficult because you've got rugby league and rugby union, and I haven't really. But I suppose we could do a rugby union team. It's an interesting one because some of the players I would choose are still playing. I can do a combined rugby. It depends if you want league or union. That's what I'll go for there. Starting lineups. Then you've got to look at the interchange benches, because rugby league is an interchange game. Union, I can do a starting 15, and I'm surprised. Okay, right, okay, fine. We're doing a starting. Okay, right. Hooker, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. No. We're doing the line backs line differently today. We're gonna confuse that fuck out of it. I'm gonna do it like this. Okay, let's do a combined rugby union. Let's do it. Let's do it. This is gonna be fun. Okay, I'm gonna write the names down in Les Bleus. S'il vous plaît? Okay. Let us begin, shall we? I don't know why I'm talking. Uh, Funny. Okay. Right. Okay. My favourite fullback, and people disagree a lot with me on this, but go on. That's it. Percy Montgomery for me, fullback, all day long, all day long. We know who's going on the number 11 wing. You got to have Jonah Lomu. I'm not gonna lie. We're not even gonna debate the fact that Jonah Lomu's on the wing. Bro, this is a hard one because we've got to have a look at 15 individuals. Would they work well as a team? This is a fantasy team, so would they actually work well as a team? That is the well. We know he's going to get 10. There's no doubt of Wilson at 10. And the late West Hayes. Oh, how do I spell Van der Westhuizen? Oh dear. It's a pity he passed away so young. Westhuizen. So there's a U. There is an I. There's a Z. So yeah, we're already getting difficult. Oh god. Right. I missed out a key position. I've just noticed. I'm a Burke. I can't count. Yeah, we need a 13. And then we have a 14. Yeah, I can't count. I missed out the unlucky number. Well, props. Oh, dear. Oh, my God. Very, very hard. Very, very hard. I'm putting Keith Wood in at hooker. Richie McCaw. Got to have him. Tara Umaga, because he'll just kill you. Bod, you got to have Bod. Got a Brian O'Driscoll in there. It's the forward pack that's more difficult than the backs. I'm just having a think now. Difficult one. It is a difficult one. I'm gonna have to have. Oh, no, is it? I don't want to have Campaign because he's a dick. It's a difficult one. Jason Leonard. I'll have Victor Matfield because he is an ultimate gentleman of the game. I'm not gonna lie there. Victor Matfield will definitely get into my second row. You got to have Jerry Collins, Human Wrecking Ball, the late great Jerry Collins. I'm going to have Danny Grewcock because he was a thug. You need a bit of thuggery. You need a bit of thuggery in your second, right? Not gonna lie. Bit of intensity. It's 6 that's been a real problem. There's not many. The number 6 is not really well known as a position that you're a star player. It's a difficult one. Well, we know who's going on the other wing, don't we? Who do I put at 6? This is the position that's going to bug me for like for a while. Who's the Aussie captain? Hooper, isn't it? I know I'm going to put there. I know who's going there. We know who I'm putting there. Underrated flanker, Richard Hill. There we go. Oh, Jesus. And number 3, prop. Oh, this is oh gods. Number 3, who I put as prop? I'm going to put Graham Roundtree. There's any bloody prop I know. Andrew Sheridan, no, was he? Yeah. I've had to go for that. I would have to go for that as my fantasy rugby starting 15. Rugby league is a different kettle of fish because there's so many good players there. I think I could just name a state of origin team and that would be it. But it was difficult. I put Habana on the wrong wing. I put Brian Habana on the wrong wing because who else do you have? Do I you know do I put Simpson Daniel on there? I mean, let's have a look at where they're from, and we should work out. So we have England, Ireland. Oh God, England. We have England here, England there. We have South Africa. It's very interesting to see where these people come from, isn't it? Jerry Collins was obviously Kiwi. Richie McCaw, Kiwi. Lomu technically could have played for Tonga, but you know, I put Tara Umaga in the wrong position, but you know, fuck it. Van der Veste is in SA. Percy Montgomery, South Africa. Habana, South Africa. Driscoll, Ireland. And look, not a single Australian gets in my side. I could have had Juan Martin Hernandez in there. I mean, subs. I could have had Hernandez in there, but at the end of the day, it's what it is. I think who's still playing on this list? I think Brian Habana is still playing. Yeah, you'll find Brian Habana is still playing. Apart from that, yeah, Brian Habana is the only one still playing. People who passed away out of this list, we've lost the great Jerry Collins. He's no longer with us. Jonah Lomu is no longer with us, and Yusuf Vesthosen is no longer with us. Apart from that, there you go. That's a difficult one because obviously I could have had a couple of the Argentines, like Corletto at fullback, a better strike runner than Montgomery. I could have had Juan Martin Hernandez. I could have had Pichot at scrum half. So there's a couple of RGs who could have made it in there, but for the most part, it is the traditional. There's no Frenchman on this list. None. I could have had Entamac in the centres on there, but no. I could have had, the great Dominique C on the wing. I could have had Bernard Sala at fullback. Not good enough to get on this list. But that's my professional era starting 15. Campese, I just wouldn't have him in the side because no one would want to play with him. This is a team I think that could, in theory, I mean, because they're all technically In theory, yeah, they actually all are contemporaries because they would have all played at some point against each other. Brian Habana's one of the younger ones. Brian O'Driscoll's one of the younger ones. But in theory, yeah, this side would have come across each other at club and international level. And from what I know about rugby union, I think this side would slot in brilliantly as a 15. It is a pity that Van der Westhuizen, Lomu, and Jerry Collins have passed away, but that 8, 9, 10 axis is terrifying. So you have Jerry Collins never won the World Cup. Yeah, put that one out there. Joe Lomu never won the World Cup. Richie McCaw did. Keith Wood hasn't. O'Driscoll hasn't. There's a few non-World Cup winners in here. For the most part, it is Umunga didn't because he blew his knee up. But I could have had Carlos Spencer in there, but Carlos Spencer's a dick as well. So I tend to keep dickheads out of lineups because I try and make it so that they're great players, but they've got to be able to play with each other. It's all well and good having an all-star 15 or an all-star 11 or an all-star NHL 4 lines, 6, 4 lines of 6, 3 lines, no, 3 lines, 4 lines of 3, and 2 pairs to make 6 to make the and 2 goalies for ice hockey. You can have an all-star team and they all hate each other. So I'd rather have a team where they all get on. And I've met Jonah Lomu. I've met Tara Umunga. I've met a young Jerry Collins. He was big when he was young. Big man. Terrifyingly big man. I've met Johnny Wilkinson. Top lad. There are some top lads on it. And a lot of them have gone into coaching, you'll notice, as well. So he became the goal kicking coach for South Africa for a while. He's now a pundit. Tara Umunga's now a coach. Johnny Wilkinson, I don't know what he does anymore. He's too broken, probably. Richie McCaw has now joined the Air Force in New Zealand. Graham Roundtree's a scrum coach. Jason Leonard writes, I think, a newspaper column now. Keith Woods, obviously, TV. Richard Hill, I believe he's involved in some kind of coaching capacity somewhere. Danny Grucock, I can't remember what happened to him. But some of them have got into coaching, some haven't. I think any one of these will be a damn good coach. That was harder than I thought to whack on a starting 15. We didn't even get to the coach with the subs bench. I mean, that's how difficult it is. If you want to look at rugby league, it's far more difficult because of the interchange bench. And a lot of players that I would put in my rugby league lineup are still playing. I don't really have a favourite rugby league starting 13 with 4 interchanges yet. It would be interesting, but I think we'll have to see. Cam Peasley was an arsehole. There's no denying that. He was an absolute turd of a human being. No one likes him even now. Even his teammates of 91 go, we cannot stand the man. So he's not really well liked at reunions. But that would be my squad. The United lineup predictions for Liverpool, I couldn't give them. I don't follow the Premier League as religiously as I did when I was a kid. I'll be interested to see the scoreline, absolutely. But I think that's going to be a game that will possibly define who wins the title. I think it is. Liverpool are still favourites. Solskjaer, I think there's a lot of work for him still to do. And I think while he's done very well to raise the morale of the team, get a couple of cup wins in there as well, beat 2 big rivals in the cup, and he's improved their league position markedly, and they've gone on this good run. The Champions League is still a concern. If they fail to progress from that, he will be looked at. But it's not. He inherited a squad, but he will be looked at. I don't think United win a trophy this year. Personally, I think the FA Cup, while it's helped them, I think there are some other teams that are taking it with more pride and passion and really going for it that are underrated. Wolves, Watford, and Palace. Beware those 3 teams. I honestly believe that. I think an unfancy team will do it. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. I'm predicting a feisty 3-2 encounter. I'm going to go for an opening game. That's how both sides seem to like to play under these managers, and it's going to be interesting. But I'm going for a very open game. I'm going for the 3-2 to Liverpool. I think Liverpool, they just have more depth up front. I think they can score more goals than United. United, for all the quality they do have in that squad, which is a decent squad, they don't get enough goals out of the players they've got. Sanchez is a bit of a worry. In the ice hockey, yes, I was at the game on Wednesday, and it was brewing in the game between Bracknell and Peterborough in the first period. There were some big hits going in. There was a bit of I would say a clash, but there was a heated discussion at the end of the first period whistle. Some players did not want to leave the ice in an orderly fashion, and there was some heated discussions taking place, and then there was some chirping. Second period, it went by. Third period, again, it got as the game went on. I feel it got more and more edgy, and I was up in my little bunker, as we say, in the corner. And we all knew it was going to kick off. It was kind of obvious. I think both sides were classless at the end. Um, I don't know what Ryan Watt did. All I know is he's a tool. Um, he didn't have much ice time, but I don't know what caused it, but it was a bench clearance. It wasn't the biggest bench clearance brawl, as in the worst, but it wasn't great. It calms down. Bracknell ready for the handshakes, and Peterborough have a huff and walk straight down the tunnel. So it's one of them. I think looking at it in a context, there's not many games left in the regular season. We know the top four teams who they're going to be. Peterborough have fallen apart somewhat, but looking forward, you know, we don't know what league teams are going to be playing in next year. We don't know the league structure yet. We know there's going to be a lot of changes. We know that fundamentally there are issues with governance and finances, and it's going to be interesting. I think Peterborough, will have more than enough for Basingstoke. Um, they'll be fired up, but at the end of the day, I think going forward, with the state of the game in this country, I think there is a big question to ask about the finances of the sport at the moment, the the structure of the sport at the moment, and looking forward, like, okay, can teams financially be viable? There's a lot of issues with finance about clubs, so we've discussed it a lot on the channel over the months. We've seen clubs have to crowdfund for survival very early on in the season. We're seeing issues up north as well as down south. There's a lot of problems across the board. There are meetings being had about the league structure for next season, like a return to an EPIHL second tier, and what teams will be in that, and also Basingstoke's ongoing rink issue that's now solely on the council. I've been following that, and those developments, and I think the situation there is very, very serious going forward. And it's going to be interesting to see what solution is found to solve the issues in the Basingstoke area. We're seeing other issues on the Isle of Wight with their ice rink and the battle to reopen it, and the ownership of the rink being questionable, and the lease. And there are things that can be done better in this country if the sport is to continue to grow. They need to look at the structures in place. They need to look at the governing body. They need to look at applying for funding and a whole variety of issues. So it's going to be interesting to see what direction the sport takes over the next couple of years. And we have to see how the national side do in the World Championships in a couple of months, because they're doing some really good warm-up games against KHL teams, and they've been doing quite well in them. So it's going to be interesting to see how the national side does in the World Championships ice hockey. It's going to be interesting to see, how they perform. I'm not expecting miracles. I'm not expecting them to win many games, if any. I was up in I was up in the corner. There was something that happened down by the benches, right near the end. There might have been a late hit in there somewhere, as Brighton were attacking the Peterborough goal. There was a late hit in there somewhere in the last couple of minutes. I'm surprised it took as long as it did for that kind of emotion to come out. Ryan Watt, though, is an absolute tool. I can't see him being a member of the team next season. I can't. The, it's a difficult one because obviously at that at the level that it's been played at, obviously the elite league are trying to sniff around for talent and pinch talent. But having watched the game and having been a fan of the sport for so many years, I don't mind if my team win or lose. I really don't. It's a bonus if they win, but it's the performance they put in and how they play. But I think at the end it was classless by both sides. Something's been said, something's been done. There might have been a missed call in there. Ryan Watt is an absolute tool, and I wouldn't be surprised if he misses the rest of the season. Plain and simple. He hasn't done much in the season anyway. I have to pay to play to go up again potentially. Well, they're saying Hull may go up to the Elite League, but at the end of the day, there's a reason why the Hull Stingrays went out of business. They ran out of money. It's all well and good saying there is a fan base there, and the Hull Stingrays were a terrible, terrible team in form. So it's all well and good saying you want to return to the Elite League, but the Hull Pirates have only been in existence for 4 years. And for the first 2 years of that existence, they were absolutely terrible. So whoop-de-doo. They haven't been around long enough, I don't think, to warrant going up. There's a reason why Milton Keynes Lightning and Guildford Flames got the discussions in place to go up and compete. Guildford have blitzed it. It's called years and years and years of working in a community, building up a youth player base, building up a fan base, having stable ownership, which Guildford have had, and developing and going and building. And Guildford were a very decent side before they went up, and they've stayed a decent side while they're up. Milton Keynes Lightning, we can debate how long they're going to stay in the Elite League. There are issues with Milton Keynes Lightning with their quality level. They are the worst team in the league. They haven't taken the leaps and bounds on that Guildford had. And Guildford are conference winners of their conference, so that says something about how good the Guildford team is and how that team is being put together. Hull, they're going to face it. It's going to be much more difficult for Hull when it's going to be. I think because Hull have had 2 years of being absolutely shocking in the EPIHL. They joined the National League. They are a quality above the National League sides in the north because the north of England, I think, is worse for quality at that level than the south. They've had an easy ride. I wouldn't. I wouldn't really. I don't know what to make of the Hull Pirates. The games that I saw them play in the EPIHL, they were terrible away from home. They had no away form. And very few fans came down all the way from Hull to support, unlike Sheffield, who used to bring quite a few. So when they do, if they do make that massive step up and they are passed to do so, I can see them actually having some issues because they're going to come up against some very established sides and they've got to put a roster together that can compete at the Elite League level. And whether the teams in whatever structure we have at the second tier are willing to give up their best players who could be Elite League ready to Hull is another thing altogether, and whether those players are willing to play for Hull, knowing that the Hull Stingrays did have money issues, and would money issues be a problem again? We're seeing with Milton Keynes that they're not doing so well financially. So it's an interesting one. I just need to check a few bits and pieces because people are watching other videos and leaving comments, and I'm going to have to say that England Wales game yesterday was one of the worst games I've ever seen for quality for entertainment. Yeah. Uh, at the end of the day, it's it's about the financial stability and whether Hull have the financial stability. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. I have section messages there. I think my Wales England review has divided opinion on the fact that it was the lowest quality game for 60 minutes. Some people are generally blind and have rose tinted spectacles on. You were asking about how long I'm doing the stream for. I don't know. Is the long answer of it. The rugby starts in a little over 3 hours. The Ireland Italy game, and that's going to be an interesting game because there are key players missing for both sides, and Ireland have made a lot of changes. I think unnecessarily so, but we shall see what happens, and we'll see how much those changes affect the outcome of the game. What else we got? Yeah, there are only two there are only two top six teams left in the FA Cup. I think the FA Cup, they need to look at the fact they got rid of replays in the fifth round. It boggles belief because the clubs at the lower level need money and replays bring them money. But the clubs at the higher level don't seem to want to share the wealth, and hence why we have issues that we do in the lower level with clubs going into receivership. There's issues around Charlton, Bolton, Coventry. There's a whole host of other clubs that have got money problems. People ask me why I don't like football as much as I did, and it's you just got to look at the wages they're on, the absolute shocking amount of money these guys are paid to do not a lot sometimes, and how much they earn. I'm just scratching my head and going, "What? You're paid how much?" But no, it is interesting. What else? Rugby league. Yes, the rugby league. The NRL have started their pre-season trials matches. So if you're a rugby league fan, I could do a rugby league starting 13, but that'll be a mess because I'm not sure, how I would do that. It could be interesting. But no, the NRL have started their pre-season, and in the World Club Challenge they win again because the Roosters are putting out a half-strength team, smash Wigan all over the place, and embarrass them easily. There was no hiding behind that. That was one of the most one-sided games you'll see. And of course, you've got to look at the Super League and the issues surrounding the Challenge Cup. Now, the Challenge Cup is an interesting one because the RFL is losing money and wanted the non-English sides to enter the Challenge Cup to pay £500,000, and they went no. And that sums up the state of rugby league is money. On other sports news, F1 testing's happening, and Mercedes aren't the fastest car. That's interesting. There's F1 testing at Barcelona is taking place. Not that I'm overly phased by it. I think with the state of F1 and the TV rights deal that's coming up at the end of this year, I think the TV rights deal for next year is a problem. There's going to be a lack of free-to-air coverage of F1, and for those who like motorsport, I think F1 is becoming less and less desirable for a lot of fans, and less enjoyable for a lot of people to watch. It's becoming very predictable, and I know there are some aero package changes and some regulation changes coming in, which should make it a little bit more interesting. But the big teams are complaining because it's becoming more interesting. It's because F1 has become something that fans aren't liking as much and aren't enjoying as much. And at the end of the day, I don't know how long that is sustainable. If fans are switching off, and fans are switching off because you put it behind a paywall on Sky or BT or whatever you do, fan viewership is dropping off. And if they want to keep European fans interested, It's going to be an interesting one, and with regulation changes, this could be a very exciting season, or it could be a very dull season. We just don't know. Um, but it's the same teams winning. It's the same drivers winning. It's all about who's got the biggest budget and who can put the most money in the car and into the development. And the smaller teams just don't have that kind of oomph to develop cars. And there's debate about client teams and engine supply and cost and a whole variety of issues. And F1 is in the last 10 years has seen a lot of these regulations to do with cost that actually make the cars less exciting, make the racing less exciting, make a whole variety of things not as good. And it's one of them. It's trying to strike a balance between keeping it accessible for fans and getting the right TV deal. But it just seems like the TV deal they're going to sign is just going to mean less people watch and invest and want to be involved with it. And long term, what's F1's future? But the testing's been interesting. There's been a couple of big pranks already. There's been garage fire. Mercedes aren't doing as well as they would like. The other teams have really closed the gap on them very, very quickly. And it's getting quite interesting. The the struggle that is for F1 dominance, because McLaren have been the most dominant team for a long time. They've fallen away. Ferrari have fallen back and then come out of nowhere in this testing period. And I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not saying that it's not been an interesting uh, debating point. Oh, there's some really negative Welsh fans on here. There's some really negative Welsh fans on my fucking. Apparently, I'm talking out my art. Right. What have we got here? You're talking out my backside. Apparently, stick with the football because that was a great fallback by Wales. No, it was 60 minutes of running and getting smashed in the tackle. It was only because Dan Bigger came on in the second half. Uh, and I'm just like listening to some of these negative comments. I'm just like, hang on a sec. Did you guys not watch the first 60 minutes of that game? Bananas. The Welsh can't win with grace and they can't lose with honour either. They're fucking scummy fans. I hate Welsh rugby fans. They're just scum. Let's say the EPL does come back for the next, possibly. At the end of the day, the teams at the second tier level, there is an issue with the structure of the league as it is. There's issues with finance as it is. There's an issue with a whole variety of things. Actually, there's an issue with a whole variety of things. There's issues with finances of some of the smaller market teams or some of the smaller clubs and their finance going forward. There's issues with playoff structure. There's issues with all these extra cup games. There's issues with ice rinks. If there is a second tier to come back or some kind of change in the league structure, I would expect more local media coverage on radio, for example. We're seeing a lot of the highlights are on the local news channel, like the local news, on like South Today and Meridian and things like that. But the local news broadcasts are picking up match highlights, so there is an appetite for people wanting to watch and read. The local press is really good coverage on. I think every team has great local press. For esports, I think are planning to put more live Elite League games next year. They started off not doing every weekend. They drip fed it, but it it's all well and good having a TV package. There, I think the Raiders have the finance to compete. I think Streatham do as well at a second tier level. The Raiders have been there before, but okay, this is not a political. We're going to remove that. Thank you. It's an interesting one, and I think it is interesting, but would the TV want to, and would all the rinks be able to have TV crews there and be able to broadcast? That's another thing as well, that may be holding, certain things back. I wouldn't be surprised if they pick up the playoff finals. That could be totally doable. But at the end of the day, you've got a couple of YouTubers. Yeah, it's a complete mess how it's all been. I would love to appear on banners on the wall and give my viewpoint as a fan and as someone who's watched the sport in all its iterations and follies since before the Super League, and the mess that has been left structurally at lower levels in the game. The unsustainability of the Super League has had some knock-on effects with rules that have been brought in over the overseas player rules. Absolutely. Um, the overseas player rules and the import rules are important because they do keep costs down. And that's something that caused the Super League to completely fail, was the fact that there was no overseas limit on players. It was just a free for all and get North Americans and Europeans in who you couldn't afford to pay. Um, and yeah, there's a clear gap in quality and financing and support and sponsorship and investment. And yeah, it's not sustainable because the same teams are going to be at the top and the same teams will be at the bottom, and the same teams will continue to struggle, and the same teams will continue to battle for a limited space at the top, and the same teams will be in the middle. It's an issue that's been there for a long time. I think part of the issue is when the Elite League decided to take Guildford and Milton Keynes out of the EPIHL, they didn't figure that league would go bust. They thought teams at the lower levels, such as the Raiders, for example, would take that step up and fill the gap, but they didn't fully anticipate the fact that the Manchester Phoenix were going to fail mid-season, and they did. And they didn't anticipate the fact that all 7 remaining teams were like, sod it. We're not having the positive, constructive discussions with the teams in the level below and those that could make the step. And it was just an utter shambles that summer. That summer, it was all done at last minute. It was all done at you know in muddle. It was definitely muddled thinking when the EPIHL collapsed and the limited time they had to get these teams put into divisions and put into leagues and organise a league structure that then was agreed upon and then had to be changed again because 2 teams, Chelmsford and Oxford, decided to kick up a huff. I think Solway. The problem with Solway is that they're in Scotland, and that is a fair bit of travel to get to Streatham or in South London. That'll be a lot of transport costs that someone's got to pick up and someone's got to be willing to pay for. That's a 6 to 10 hour drive, depending on traffic. That is a long way to go for the Solway Sharks. I don't think that's sustainable. I don't know about the MK Lightning. They might mothball completely. They might collapse financially. I was seeing the MK Thunder having issues. I don't know about them. It'd be nice to see some kind of really competitive second tier, but out of those teams, there are some there that may end up in the Elite League. So it is interesting. I think if you look at it the the issues are, and it is plain to see, like the issues are finance, and you got to look at can I don't know what the finances are in Whitley Bay, but to have them in like an English hockey league or some kind of uh I, I wouldn't say Telford are one of the weakest. I think they've got the money now. It's the size of their rink really harms their going forward in any capacity. Their rink is tiny. Basingstoke, I feel sorry, but the situation is thus. The rink could collapse tomorrow. It could last 2 more years in its current state, but I can't see that being acceptable for fans to to come in. It's not something that fills home or away fans with positivity. When you walk through those rink doors, it is a disaster, and it's reached a point where it shouldn't have reached. And I don't know how a solution can be found if the council aren't willing to really sort this out, because they own all the land down there. It's going to be. They might have a north and south division, but actually play once in the league or something, like a conference type thing. And but I think this is one of the issues which caused issues with the EPIHL was some of the teams from up north. Manchester, I think, is the prime example. Um, and you got to look at Whitlink as well. When they were in the league, it was getting over the Solent. There are some travel costs that have to be put in there and budgeted for. And some of the teams did have problems with travel costs, and finding a company that could, cover the transport for away games. Some teams are very, very lucky in that a lot of their players will happily have a van and whack the kit in one, couple minibuses, teams down. But others, Peterborough always turn up in a big coach. Peterborough got funding. I think Bracknell now have Courtney Coaches on board as a sponsor, and before that they had another sponsor to do with coaches. Um, at, at the end of it all, transport costs have been a big problem throughout British ice hockey's history, throughout. And it's been an issue dating back years. There's a reason why the professional league in the 60s didn't carry on in the 70s and the 80s. There's a big reason for that. Look, Whitley Bay are one of the oldest hockey teams in existence. They've been going for donkey's years. Newcastle Vipers ended up playing there when they fell apart. So they have been at a high level as a rink. The communities, supported ice hockey up there since the 30s. They just have a bad team, and that doesn't always help. So that comes down to what they're doing with the money. They're developing players badly. That comes down to coaching. That comes down to a whole variety of issues there, and will continue to do so. There is nothing in my mind that says they won't be a good team again. But once you get a negative culture in, or when you have a losing culture, it's very hard to lose the losing culture. And as a Bracknell fan, I can say for the better part of a decade, we've been declining, and it's slowly coming back, but we haven't been great for a while. And you have to look at inside that dressing room, and you have to look at the young players that have been developed getting into that dressing room, and the players been brought in, and the players moving out. You have to look at a whole host of dynamics to do with the team going forward. And it's all great a team having the budget to be able to pay the players, bring in good players. But if they don't gel together, it's irrelevant. If you don't develop youth in the best possible way and effectively, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean sweet f all. If you can't as I said, you can have all the money and you can have vast sums of cash, and you can sign or have the budget to sign some big name players in whatever sport you play, and they may not all get on. You can have a team of 11 superstars and in football, or 15, rugby players in rugby union, or 13 in rugby league, and they all hate each other. They don't play well. There's a lot to do with team chemistry. If the team chemistry is poor, it does affect how a team performs. And it also comes down to coaching as well. You can improve players by coaching. You can't necessarily improve players by just signing big names and hoping that that player or whatever decide for whatever reason to want to. It's one of them. There's a lot to be said about. Oh God, you bloody Welsh! You can all go do one. But at the end of the day, yeah, you can say what you want about oh, bloody thing. Switch account. You can say what you want about like a variety of things, and I'm not going to say every budget's all good and things are all great and things are perfect and whatever. I mean, Christ, you got to look at some of the great teams of in history, like Real Madrid. For a long time, they couldn't win La Liga. They were the Galacticos. They had all these great players that didn't gel. Brazil, um, in the 80s, had all these great players. They couldn't play together. They could not gel as a squad and and move forward. What's happening with the old result there? It's lunchtime here. So it's all well and good saying you can have all this, you can have as much money as you want, sign a team. But Man City spent how many years before they won any trophies with the ownership they have? Took a long time. Took a long time for Man City to actually get silverware to come to the Etihad. And a lot of people forget that they were bought in 2007. And yeah, it took a long time for Man City to get any traction in in the Premier League. They spent a lot of money, and at the end of the day, like it's it's an interesting one because they did spend a lot of money not winning. And then you got to look at the clubs that have won with less, and it's a lot to do with team chemistry. It's a lot to do with how a team performs as a unit. It's more than just having star players because you can have superstar players and they don't perform well. Yeah, there we go. Oh well, we've got to prep for Ireland, Italy, and that's going to be a really interesting game going forward. I think Ireland are making a lot of changes in their lineup. Rory Best isn't starting. You've got Cronin starting at hooker, which is, I think, a bit of a risk considering he hasn't had many starts in the Six Nations. I think he's had any. I think he's had all his Six Nations appearances come from the bench. Italy are missing Sergio Parisse. And there are some interesting points to discuss about the direction of rugby in a variety of places. Right, I'm going to call that a day because unless you have any more questions about a variety of things, I don't know what else I can really talk about. We could discuss Pochettino's comments towards the referee and was he right to go down what he said and do what he said and did what he did. And yeah, we could discuss a whole variety of issues with uh, a whole variety of sports. Pochettino obviously did react very badly to the officiating the other night. It's going to be an interesting one today with the rugby. But anyway, I'm going to call that there. Thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate all your comments and bits and pieces. Thank you very much. And I'll have some more videos for you soon.